The scorching sun hung like a fiery medallion in the Colorado sky as Clara Prescott clutched the hand of a trembling child, hustling him through the back door of the schoolhouse in Gunnison. The year was 1879, and tonight, like many nights before, Clara was breaking the law, a law that had never felt right to her soul. "Hush now, Tommy," she whispered, gathering the small Mexican boy closer to her skirts as they slipped through the shadows. "Your mama will be waiting at the church." The boy nodded, tears streaking through the dust on his face. His family had crossed into American territory fleeing violence, only to face new dangers here. Governor Pitkin's recent order decreed that all foreign laborers be expelled from mining towns across Colorado, and Gunnison was enforcing it with particular vigor. Clara, at 26, had taught at the town's schoolhouse for nearly 5 years. Daughter of a preacher who died of consumption 2 winters past, she lived alone now in a small cabin and was respected, if not entirely embraced, by the townspeople. Her quiet rebellion had begun 6 months ago when she found one of her students, Maria, crying behind the schoolhouse. The girl's father had been beaten by a group of miners who claimed he was stealing American jobs. That night, Clara had hidden the family in her root cellar until arrangements could be made to move them safely to a sympathetic community in New Mexico. One family became 2, then 5, then more, a secret network forming with Clara at its heart in Gunnison. "Miss Prescott," Tommy whispered as they neared the church where Sister Agnes would take over. "Are angels real?" Clara smiled down at the boy. "I believe they are, Tommy. Why do you ask?" "Mama says you're one." Clara felt her throat tighten as they approached the church's side entrance. Sister Agnes was waiting, her wizened face appearing briefly in the window before the door creaked open. "Quickly now," the nun urged, ushering them inside. Clara knelt before Tommy. "You be brave for your mama, you hear? And remember what we learned about courage. It's not about not being afraid," Tommy recited solemnly. "It's about doing what's right even when you are afraid." Clara nodded, pressing a small wooden cross into his palm before hugging him tightly. "God be with you, Tommy." Sister Agnes took the boy's hand. "The wagon leaves in 20 minutes. You should go, Clara." "Being seen here, I know," Clara said, rising. "Godspeed." As she slipped back into the night, Clara pulled her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The air held the chill of early autumn, and stars were beginning to prick the darkening sky. She would need to hurry home before curfew. She never made it. Sheriff Markham was waiting at her cabin, flanked by Mayor Hollister and 3 members of the town council. The sight froze Clara's blood. "Miss Prescott," the sheriff said, removing his hat. "I believe you know why we're here." Clara lifted her chin. "I cannot say that I do, Sheriff." Mayor Hollister stepped forward, his substantial belly straining against a waistcoat that had once been fine. "Don't play coy, Miss Prescott. We know what you've been doing. Harboring illegals. Helping them escape proper deportation. It's treason against this town and this state. Helping children and families find safety is neither illegal nor treasonous," Clara replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "The governor's decree," began one of the councilmen, "is unjust," Clara finished. "And I answer to a higher authority than Governor Pitkin." The sheriff sighed. "Clara, please. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Just tell us who else is involved in this operation of yours, and perhaps we can work something out." Clara met his gaze. "There's nothing to tell, Sheriff." Mayor Hollister's face reddened. "Then you leave us no choice. By the authority vested in me by the town charter of Gunnison and the state of Colorado, I hereby banish you from town limits. You have until sunrise to gather your belongings and leave. Should you return, you'll be arrested and tried for sedition." "You can't be serious," Clara whispered, though she could see they were. "This is my home." "Not anymore," the mayor replied coldly. "Not after what you've done." The men departed, leaving Clara standing alone in the gathering darkness. Tears threatened, but she forced them back. There would be time for weakness later. Now, she needed to decide what to take and where to go. By dawn, Clara had packed what she could into 2 carpet bags and a trunk. Her books, her father's Bible, clothing, and the small treasures that marked her life. Everything else, her furniture, her mother's china, the carefully tended garden, would be left behind. Sister Agnes arrived as Clara was securing her trunk to a small cart she had borrowed from the church. "This is madness," the older woman said, embracing Clara fiercely. "You saved those children. You did God's work." "And I would do it again," Clara replied, returning the embrace. Sister Agnes pressed a small pouch of coins into Clara's hand. "The parish took up a collection. It isn't much, but it might help until you find your feet." "Thank you," Clara said, tucking the pouch into her pocket. "You'll be careful? They suspect others are involved." "Let them suspect. An old nun is hardly a threat," Sister Agnes said with a wry smile. "Where will you go?" Clara hesitated. "West, I think. Perhaps to Silver Creek. I have a distant cousin there who might take me in, at least temporarily." As the sun crested the mountains, Clara took one last look at the schoolhouse where she had taught, at the church spire rising above the pines, at the only home she had known since childhood. Then she clicked her tongue to set the horse in motion, the cart's wheels groaning as it began its journey west. 4 days later, Clara was lost. A late-season storm had washed out the mountain pass she had planned to take, forcing her to detour south through territory she didn't know. Her food supplies were dwindling, and her horse was showing signs of fatigue. As dusk approached on the 4th day, Clara spotted smoke rising from a clearing ahead. Approaching cautiously, she saw a small camp with a single figure tending a fire. "Hello, the camp," she called from a safe distance, one hand on the small derringer hidden in the folds of her dress. "Might I approach?" The figure a man rose and turned toward her voice. "Come ahead," he called back. "Fire's warm and coffee's hot." As Clara guided her cart closer, she took the man's measure. Tall and broad-shouldered, with a cowboy stance and weathered features. He wore a Stetson pulled low, and his clothing was trail-worn but clean. A rifle leaned against a nearby tree, within reach but not threatening. "Samuel Lawson," he said by way of introduction, touching the brim of his hat. "Most folks call me Sam." "Clara Prescott," she replied, remaining on her cart. "I seem to have taken a wrong turn at the pass. I'm headed for Silver Creek." Sam nodded. "Storm took out the usual route. Silver Creek's still 3 days' ride from here, assuming good weather." He glanced at her tired horse and laden cart. "You look like you could use a rest and a hot meal." "I've got rabbit stew that's almost done." Clara hesitated, weighing the risk of accepting hospitality from a stranger against the growing darkness and her own exhaustion. "I don't make a habit of harming women," Sam said, seemingly reading her thoughts. "And you can keep that derringer handy if it makes you feel safer." Clara flushed, embarrassed at being so transparent. "Thank you for your kind offer, Mr. Lawson. I would be grateful for a meal." After helping Clara unhitch and tend to her horse, Sam served up 2 tin plates of stew. It was simple fare but delicious to Clara's hunger-sharpened appetite. "What brings you to these parts?" Sam asked as they ate. "Silver Creek's not exactly a common destination." Clara considered how much to share. "I'm between positions at the moment. I have family in Silver Creek who might help me find work." "Teaching work?" Sam asked, nodding toward the slate board partially visible in her cart. "Yes," Clara admitted. "How did you know?" Sam smiled, the expression transforming his rugged face into something almost boyish. "Your speech. The way you hold yourself. Plus, not many travelers cart around schoolbooks." Clara found herself returning the smile. "You're observant, Mr. Lawson." "Sam," he corrected. "And it's a useful trait in my line of work." "Which is?" "Bit of this and that. Currently, I'm scouting land for cattle grazing. My brother and I are looking to start a ranch, if we can find the right place." He refilled her coffee cup. "But you're running from something." "It wasn't a question." Clara stiffened. What makes you say that? Woman traveling alone, in a hurry despite poor conditions, watching the trail behind her. Sam shrugged. Doesn't take much observing to see that. Clara set down her cup. I should retire for the night. Thank you for the meal. Sam nodded, not pressing further. You're welcome to share the camp for the night. I'll sleep on the other side of the fire. That night, lying on her bedroll and staring at stars through the pine boughs, Clara listened to Sam's steady breathing across the fire. There was something comforting about his presence, despite her caution. It had been a long time since Clara had felt anything but alone. Morning brought clear skies and the aroma of coffee and bacon. Clara emerged from her bedroll to find Sam already up and cooking. Thought we might travel together, he said, handing her a tin cup of coffee. At least until the junction at Whitewater Creek. Roads can be dangerous for a solitary traveler. Clara wanted to refuse. Maintaining her independence seemed important somehow, but practicality won out. That would be sensible, thank you. As they traveled that day, Clara found Sam to be a surprisingly easy companion. He didn't pry into her affairs but shared stories of his own travels across the West. He had been a cavalry scout during the war, then a ranch hand, a marshal's deputy, and briefly a prospector before deciding that cattle ranching offered the best chance at a stable future. My brother Caleb's already started building the ranch house, Sam explained as they made camp that evening. Just needs to find the right grazing land to expand. You seem to have lived many lives, Mr. Lawson. Sam, Clara observed. The West offers that possibility, he replied. A chance to reinvent yourself. To leave behind whatever's hounding you. He looked at her pointedly. Most folks out here are running from something or towards something. Sometimes both. Clara stared into the fire. And what if what you're running from catches up to you? Then you stand and face it, Sam said simply. Or you keep running. Your choice generally comes down to what you think you deserve. The next morning, as they were breaking camp, a rider appeared on the ridge above them. Clara tensed, but Sam merely nodded in recognition. Marshal Jenkins, he called. What brings you out this way? The lawman dismounted and approached, his gaze fixed on Clara. Got a wire from Gunnison, he said without preamble. They're looking for a woman. Schoolteacher. Banished for helping Mexican families evade deportation. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. That's so? Sam said casually, stepping slightly in front of her. Sounds like Gunnison's loss. Sam, the marshal said warningly. Don't get in the middle of this. Governor's orders are clear. Foreign laborers are to be removed from mining towns. Anyone interfering faces consequences. And what exactly did this schoolteacher do, Pete? Feed some hungry children? Give them shelter from the cold? Teach them to read? Sam's voice had hardened. Since when is Christian charity a crime? It's not my place to question the law, Sam. I just enforce it. The marshal looked past Sam to Clara. Madam, I'm going to have to ask you to come with me. There are folks in Gunnison who want to talk to you. Clara straightened her spine. To what end, Marshal? I've already been banished from my home. What more could they want? Names, the Marshal replied. They want to know who else was helping you. Sam's hand moved closer to his sidearm. She's not going anywhere, Pete. The tension stretched between the two men like a drawn bowstring. Clara stepped forward. I won't implicate innocent people who are only following their conscience, she said firmly. If that means I must face further punishment, so be it. The marshal sighed. Look, I don't have any particular interest in dragging a schoolteacher back to Gunnison. But I've got a job to do. And sometimes doing your job means looking the other way, Sam countered. You know this isn't right, Pete. For a long moment, the marshal seemed to wrestle with himself. Finally, he pushed his hat back and rubbed his forehead. I didn't see anyone matching her description. Must have taken the northern route. He turned to remount his horse. Pete, Sam called. Thank you. The lawman nodded once before riding away. Clara released a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You didn't have to do that. Sam turned to her, his expression serious. They banished you for saving children. That's not justice, Clara. That's fear talking. They believe they're protecting their way of life, Clara said, though the words tasted bitter. No. They're protecting their prejudice. Sam shook his head. From where I'm standing, you're saint enough for me. The simple declaration, spoken with such conviction, broke something open inside Clara. Tears she had held back since the night of her banishment finally spilled over. Sam hesitated only a moment before stepping forward to offer his handkerchief. We should move on, he said gently. Marshal Jenkins is a good man, but word will spread. We need to get you somewhere safe. Silver Creek isn't safe anymore, Clara realized. If they're sending wires to surrounding towns. I know a place, Sam said. My brother's ranch. It's remote, and Caleb could use help teaching the ranch hands children. Many of them are Mexican families who came north looking for work. Clara looked up at him, wiping her tears. Why would you help me? You barely know me. Sam's weathered face softened. I know enough. I know you risked everything to help children who needed it. That tells me all I need to know about your character. He paused. And maybe I'm tired of watching good people suffer for doing right. The journey to Sam's brother's ranch took another week. They traveled cautiously, avoiding main roads and towns, camping under stars that seemed to Clara both indifferent to and witness to her plight. During those nights, by firelight, Clara found herself sharing the full story of her work in Gunnison, the network of safe houses, the midnight journeys, the families she had helped escape persecution. Sam listened without judgment, occasionally asking questions that showed his understanding of the complex moral territory she had navigated. He shared his own stories too, of injustices witnessed during his time as a deputy, of his growing disillusionment with laws that seemed designed to punish vulnerability rather than protect it. After the war, he told her one night, I thought we'd build something better. Something that lived up to the ideals men died for. But sometimes I wonder if we've learned anything at all. People are afraid of change, Clara said softly. And fear makes them cruel. Fear's no excuse for cruelty, Sam replied, stoking the fire. We all feel fear. The test is what we do despite it. By the time they crested the ridge overlooking Evergreen Valley, where Caleb Lawson's ranch sprawled across 1,000 acres of prime grazing land, Clara realized something had changed between them. What had begun as wary cooperation had evolved into something deeper, a respect born of shared values and mutual understanding. Caleb Lawson proved to be cut from the same cloth as his brother, forthright, principled, and immediately welcoming to Clara. His wife, Hannah, embraced her like a long-lost sister. Any friend of Sam's is family to us, she declared, showing Clara to a comfortable room in the ranch house. And from what he tells me, you're exactly the person we've been praying for. Our workers' children need proper schooling, and none of us has the training for it. The ranch employed nearly 20 families, many of them Mexican immigrants who had found refuge and fair treatment under Caleb's employment. Their children, ranging from 5 to 16 years of age, had been receiving sporadic lessons from Hannah, but her duties as ranch mistress left little time for formal education. We converted the old bunkhouse into a schoolroom, Caleb explained over dinner that first night. It's not much, but there are desks and a blackboard. Books are scarce, though. I brought what I could, Clara said. And I can write to colleagues in Denver for more. You'd be paid a proper wage, of course, Hannah added. And have your room and board here in the main house. Clara glanced at Sam, who had been unusually quiet during the meal. It's a generous offer. But I wouldn't want to bring trouble to your door. If the authorities from Gunnison, let me worry about that, Caleb interrupted. This is my land. I decide who stays and who goes. Later that evening, Clara found Sam on the porch, smoking a cigar and gazing at the stars. Your brother and his wife are remarkable people, she said, joining him at the railing. Sam nodded. Caleb always knew what he wanted. Land, family, a place where he could make his own rules. He tapped ash from his cigar. He built something good here. Thanks to your help, from what he tells me, Clara replied. He said you sent half your wages home while he was getting started. Sam shrugged. Family helps family. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, listening to the night sounds: crickets, the distant lowing of cattle, the soft murmur of voices from the bunkhouse where the ranch hands were settling in for the night. Will you stay? Sam asked finally. Here at the ranch? Clara considered the question. It seems like a place where I could do good work. And I admit, the idea of teaching again. She smiled. It feels right. You'd be safe here, Sam said. Caleb doesn't bend to outside pressure. And you? Clara asked, suddenly aware of how important his answer was to her. Will you stay? Sam turned to look at her, his expression difficult to read in the moonlight. I wasn't planning to. There's land to scout, and I've never been one to settle in one place for long. Clara nodded, trying to ignore the disappointment that settled in her chest. Of course. You have your own path. But, Sam continued, moving slightly closer, I find myself reconsidering my plans. Clara's breath caught. Oh? There's something to be said for finding a place that feels right, he said softly. And people who make you want to be better than you are. Before Clara could respond, the door opened and Caleb stepped onto the porch. Sorry to interrupt, he said, though his smile suggested he wasn't entirely sorry. Hannah's asking if you'd like some pie before turning in, Clara. That would be lovely, Clara replied, grateful for the moment to collect herself. Thank you. As she followed Caleb inside, she glanced back at Sam. He was watching her with an intensity that made her heart race, and she knew with sudden clarity that her journey had led her exactly where she needed to be. The next weeks passed in a flurry of activity as Clara established the school at Evergreen Ranch. The children, eager for knowledge and starved for structured learning, proved to be dedicated students despite the language barriers some faced. Clara's rudimentary Spanish improved rapidly as she worked with the youngest children, and she found unexpected joy in the challenge of bridging cultural divides. Sam remained at the ranch, ostensibly to help with the fall roundup and to assess nearby properties for possible expansion. But Clara noticed that he frequently found reasons to be near the schoolhouse, offering to repair desks, build bookshelves, or simply listen as she read aloud to her students during lunch breaks. You're good with them, he observed one afternoon as the children scattered after lessons, racing back to their families' cabins with excited chatter about the day's learning. They trust you. Children know when adults see them as people, Clara replied, tidying her desk. Not just as problems or responsibilities. Like those children in Gunnison, Sam said. You saw them when others looked away. Clara paused, a stack of slates in her hands. I couldn't not help them. Their families were desperate, and the children were scared. How could following an unjust law be more important than their welfare? Sam moved closer, taking the slates from her and setting them aside. That's what draws me to you, Clara. Your certainty about what matters. The confession hung between them, honest and unadorned. Clara felt her cheeks warm. Sam, A commotion outside interrupted whatever she might have said. Shouts and the sound of approaching horses drew them both to the schoolhouse door. 4 riders were approaching the main house, dust rising behind them. Clara recognized the silhouette of a badge on the lead rider's chest. Stay here, Sam said, his hand automatically checking his sidearm. Let me see what this is about. But Clara was already moving toward the house. If they're here for me, I won't hide. They reached the main house just as Caleb emerged onto the porch, rifle in hand. Hannah stood in the doorway, her expression tense. The riders pulled up in the yard, and Clara's heart sank as she recognized Sheriff Markham from Gunnison. Afternoon, Caleb called, not lowering his rifle. Something I can help you gentlemen with? Sheriff Markham dismounted, his eyes finding Clara. Miss Prescott. You've led us on quite a chase. She's not going anywhere with you, Sam said, stepping forward. Your jurisdiction ended atGunnison's town limits. This isn't just about Gunnison anymore, Markham replied. We've had reports of more Mexican families disappearing. Governor's office is taking a special interest now. What does that have to do with Miss Prescott? Caleb demanded. She's been here teaching our workers' children for weeks. One of the other riders, a thin man in an expensive suit, spoke up. We believe Miss Prescott was part of an organized effort to circumvent deportation orders. The governor wants answers. I've given all the answers I intend to, Clara said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. I won't betray people who acted out of conscience and compassion. Then you'll face charges of sedition, the suited man said coldly. The governor is determined to make an example of those who defy state directives. Sam moved to stand beside Clara. That's not happening. The tension in the yard was palpable as the two groups faced off. Clara could feel the situation balancing on a knife's edge, with violence a real possibility if either side pushed too hard. Perhaps we can discuss this civilly, Hannah suggested, stepping forward. Sheriff, you and your men must be tired from your journey. Why not rest a while, take some refreshment, and we can talk about this matter reasonably. Her intervention, offered with such calm authority, seemed to shift the atmosphere. Sheriff Markham hesitated, then nodded. That's sensible, madam. We've been riding since dawn. As Hannah led the visitors toward the house, Sam caught Clara's elbow. This is our chance, he whispered. We can have you on a horse and halfway to the territorial line before they finish their coffee. Clara shook her head. No more running, Sam. I'm tired of looking over my shoulder. Clara, they mean to make an example of you, Sam insisted. This isn't just about banishment anymore. I know, she said. But I did nothing wrong, and I won't act as though I did. Inside, Hannah had set out coffee and fresh baked bread. The lawman and the suited man who introduced himself as Harmon Whitley, special envoy from the governor's office, sat somewhat awkwardly at the Lawsons' dining table. Miss Prescott, Whitley began. I'll be direct. The governor is willing to be lenient if you provide the names of others involved in helping these immigrants evade proper channels. Proper channels that don't exist, Sam interjected. There's no legal path for most of these families. Whitley ignored him, keeping his gaze on Clara. Your cooperation would be noted favorably. Clara met his eyes steadily. Mr. Whitley, I appreciate your directness, so I'll respond in kind. I cannot in good conscience provide information that would endanger people who acted out of moral necessity. If that means I must face punishment, so be it. Stubbornness won't serve you well, Miss Prescott, Whitley warned. It's not stubbornness, Caleb interrupted. It's principle. Something your governor might not recognize. Whitley's face tightened. Careful, Mr. Lawson. Your sympathies could be construed as complicity. The tension in the room ratcheted higher, but before anyone could respond, the door burst open and one of the ranch hands rushed in. Fire! He shouted. The south pasture's ablaze. Winds pushing it toward the herd. All thoughts of political confrontation vanished as Caleb leapt to his feet. How bad? Spreading fast. The ranch hand reported. Lightning strike, looks like. Sheriff Markham stood. We'll help. No sense in letting good cattle burn while we argue politics. The next hours passed in a blur of activity, as every able body on the ranch fought to contain the fire and move the cattle to safety. Clara found herself alongside Hannah, organizing women and older children to bring water and tend to those overcome by smoke. Sheriff Markham and his deputies worked alongside the ranch hands, digging fire breaks and beating back flames. By nightfall, the fire was contained, though several acres of grazing land were charred and smoldering. 2 ranch hands had suffered burns, and many others, including Sam, were smoke-stained and exhausted. As Clara helped tend to the injured men, she became aware of Sheriff Markham watching her. When their eyes met, he nodded slightly, something like respect in his gaze. Later, as the ranch slowly settled into an exhausted quiet, Clara found Sam sitting on the porch steps, his face and hands freshly washed but his clothing still bearing the evidence of the firefight. "You should rest," she said, sitting beside him. "So should you," he replied. "But I reckon neither of us will sleep much tonight." Clara nodded, looking toward where Sheriff Markham and his men were settling into the bunkhouse for the night, their business with her apparently postponed. "What do you think will happen tomorrow?" she asked. Sam sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Hard to say. But something changes when you fight a fire alongside a man. Sees you differently." "I'm not afraid," Clara said, surprised to find it true. "Whatever comes, I can face it." Sam turned to look at her, his expression serious in the moonlight. "I've known a lot of brave people in my life, Clara Prescott. Soldiers, lawmen, frontiersmen who face down incredible dangers. But I don't think I've ever met anyone braver than you." Clara felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. "That's kind of you to say." "It's not kindness. It's truth." Sam reached out hesitantly and took her hand. "When I found you on the trail, I thought I was helping a woman in trouble. I didn't realize you'd be the one saving me." "Saving you?" Clara asked, confused. "From wandering without purpose. From never standing for anything that mattered." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "You made me remember what it means to fight for something right." Clara's heart pounded as she realized what he was saying. "Sam, I love you, Clara," he said simply. "I think I've been falling in love with you since that first night by the fire. And whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that." Clara's response came as naturally as breathing. She leaned forward and pressed her lips to his, a kiss that spoke of all the emotions that had been building between them through danger and uncertainty and shared purpose. When they finally parted, Sam's smile was brighter than the stars overhead. "I take it you feel similarly?" Clara laughed softly. "I do. Though my timing could be better, given that I may be arrested tomorrow." "You won't be," said a voice from the shadows. They turned to find Sheriff Markham standing at the corner of the porch, his expression unreadable in the darkness. "Sheriff," Sam acknowledged, standing. Clara rose beside him, her hands still clasped in his. "Miss Prescott," Markham said, stepping forward. "I've been thinking about what I saw today." About what kind of person risks themselves for others, whether they're children in Gunnison or ranch hands facing a fire. He removed his hat. "I'm not taking you back." Clara stared at him in shock. "But your orders, I'll tell Whitley I couldn't find sufficient evidence of your involvement," Markham said. "That the word of a few frightened miners doesn't justify dragging a respectable schoolteacher across state lines." "Why?" Clara whispered. "Why would you do this?" Markham was quiet for a moment. "My grandmother came across the border from Mexico when she was 16. Alone and afraid. Someone helped her. Someone like you." He replaced his hat. "Sometimes the law isn't the same as what's right." With that, he nodded to them both and disappeared back toward the bunkhouse. Sam and Clara stood in stunned silence for a moment before Sam let out a low whistle. "Well, I'll be damned." "Language, Mr. Lawson," Clara said automatically, then laughed at herself. "I can't believe it." "Believe it," Sam said, pulling her closer. "And believe this too, I'm not letting you go, Clara Prescott. Not now, not ever." The next morning, Sheriff Markham announced to a furious Harmon Whitley that he had found no conclusive evidence against Clara and would not be arresting her on such flimsy grounds. Whitley threatened repercussions, but Markham remained unmoved. "You're welcome to explain to the governor why 4 lawmen couldn't manage to bring in 1 schoolteacher," he said dryly. "I'm sure he'll be very understanding." After the officials departed, Clara found herself surrounded by the Lawson family and the ranch hands whose children she taught. "Looks like you're stuck with us now," Caleb said with a grin. "I can't think of anywhere I'd rather be," Clara replied, her eyes finding Sam's across the gathered group. 2 months later, on a clear December morning, Clara Prescott became Clara Lawson in a simple ceremony performed in the ranch's newly constructed chapel. Sam, resplendent in a new suit, had never looked more handsome, and Clara, in a cream-colored dress that Hannah had helped her sew, felt more at peace than she had in years. "I promise to stand beside you in all things," Sam vowed, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the chapel. "To face whatever comes together. And to never forget that doing what's right is worth any risk." Clara's own vows echoed his commitment, and as they sealed their promises with a kiss, cheers erupted from the assembled ranch community. The celebration that followed lasted well into the night, with music and dancing and food prepared by every family on the ranch. As Clara danced with her new husband under stars that no longer seemed indifferent but instead looked down in blessing, she thought about the journey that had brought her here, the fear, the loss, the uncertainty, and finally, the love. "Happy?" Sam asked, holding her close as they swayed to a slow fiddle tune. "Beyond measure," Clara replied. "And grateful." "For what?" "For being banished," she said with a smile. "If they hadn't sent me away, I would never have found you." Sam laughed, the sound warm in the cool evening air. "Then I suppose I owe Gunnison a debt of gratitude." "We both do," Clara said, resting her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes what seems like an ending is really just the beginning of something better." And as they danced under the winter stars, surrounded by the community they had found and the love they had built, Clara knew that whatever challenges the future might hold, they would face them together, two people who had discovered that sometimes the most sacred path is the one that leads you home to each other.